everyone. Nice to meet you, and thanks for joining us for today's panel. My name is Melody. I'm one of the co-founders of Spartan Group. We're Asia-based investment advisory group. We've been in the space for a very long time and have been investing in the Bitcoin space. That's the first one investing in stacks back in 2018 till now, investing in many of the Bitcoin layer 2 and layer 1 projects. So I'm very, very excited today. We have a group of investors who have been working in the space for a long time and led some of the biggest deals and most investing in some of the most creative and innovative founders. So we want to bring them over together and talk about what they have invested and what they're excited about and what new trends they want to see. So first, I want to let each guest, maybe 1 to 2 sentences very quickly. We have a lot to cover. Very quickly talk about who you are and your short experience in, your experience in Bitcoin investment. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks. I'm John Riggins with BTC Inc. We have a media arm that puts on the Bitcoin conference, so we're grateful for everyone being in Hong Kong this week as we bring the Bitcoin conference to Asia. Bitcoin Magazine is also a part of that media arm. And then UTXO Management is an early stage Bitcoin ecosystem focused venture fund. We've been operating for about a year now and done about 40 deals, including RGB++. So grateful to be here talking about Bitcoin.
Hi, I'm BMAN, a co-founder of ABCDE, and we are also the co-founder of Huobi. So we have been, promoting Bitcoin since 2012, and it has been 12 years. So, we have been benefit from Bitcoin. So right now we want to contribute to Bitcoin. We have invested in a lot of Bitcoin ecosystem projects, including UTXO Stack and like Merlin, Babylon, Belair, etc. So happy to be here to share my views about Bitcoin ecosystem. Thanks.
Thanks. Hi everyone. I'm Gavin, a CIO of SNZ. So SNZ started like early 2014. Like one of the co-founder actually, translated Ethereum white paper into Chinese, and we started to do the earliest community generally for all the crypto blockchain in Shanghai, mainland China. And we are also very supporting the Bitcoin ecosystem as well. We are early investor in stacks together with Melody, and also we invested in CKB Nervous since very early days, even before Jen started this company. We also together with ABCDE to lead the last run into UTXO stacks, IE sale. So we would love to kind of work together with all of you to further develop BTC. By the way, have been here in Hong Kong for more than 10 years. I'm also advising the government on the ecosystem and the infra. So we are trying to get Bitcoin to mainstream adoption as well. On the other side, we also invested in some like traditional finance company who are pushing forward like this kind of legislation, etc., to help like Bitcoin and those digital assets get mainstream adoption. Thanks.
Hi everybody, I'm Kyle from Bitcoin Frontier Fund and Stacks. As an investor, I've been investing across the Bitcoin ecosystem for the last 3 years. On the Stack side has run the ecosystem fund, investing in some of the earliest companies building on Bitcoin, and since across all the entire Bitcoin ecosystem, including some of the companies that the previous panelists have mentioned before, and also do investor relations across the entire ecosystem, talking to more investors about what's happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem to where they should or shouldn't begin their journey, and all the great projects that you guys are building as well.
Thank you, guys. So let's dig in a little bit further. So last time I was in Hong Kong was about 9 months ago. We organized a Bitcoin Builder event. We only had 90 people showed up, and fast forward 9 months later, this Hong Kong Bitcoin Builder community at least 100x. So I do think maybe 12 months later, we might have another at least 100x, maybe 10 to 100x of the Bitcoin Builder community. So there's definitely a renaissance, right, of Bitcoin building compared to even a year ago. And what triggered it, we have to contribute it to some of the meta protocols, which is not maybe the newest inventions, but definitely has broad, fresh perspective, right, from the community especially in Asia. So our topic today is really new token standards. So we want to look at why that ordinals and BRC20 was able to bring back the excitement in Bitcoin. And we want to look at some of the new standards that launched recently, and maybe even in the future, what can come out of them. Who should we ask? Do you want to, let's see, BMAN, do you want to talk about, you're the earliest, you say you are co-founder of Huobi, so you must be really early invest in Bitcoin.
My co-founder, Du Jun, is the co-founder of Huobi, so at that time, Bitcoin is gold. There is nothing to do in Bitcoin, so I think like token standard is always the grail of crypto. So we can see that there are many token standards right now, BRC20, Runes, and RGB++. And I think BRC20 is more like NFT standard, and the Runes is more like FT standard, fungible token standard. And RGB++ is the leading token standard in RGB. So I think these three are the leaders right now. So look forward to seeing more usage scenario for these tokens. So as long as we can put these standards into use. So for example, we can create DeFi scenario for these assets, and we can use these assets to generate use. And I think more and more people will adopt these token standards and create more assets. And so we will have a flywheel of these token standards. And I look forward to seeing more DeFi scenario in RGB++.
Thanks. So John, there is Bitcoin Meta protocol, and the latest Bitcoin L2 has generated a lot of controversy between the Western community and Western builders, as well to the Eastern or Asia-based builders. So you're coming from the East Coast, from New York, right? So what is the perspective? What are people thinking about from your perspective of what we're building here in Asia?
Yeah, and that's part of the reason for doing the Bitcoin conference here, is to connect those communities, because there still is, even a decade in, a little bit of a disconnect. So we're fostering a lot of dialogue this week, and I think it's going to be positive for kind of these in-person interactions as the industry develops, specifically around this. But people in the West, there's more of a kind of a maximalist culture in Bitcoin in the West, and people in the East tend to want to do things with their Bitcoin and want to make it more valuable in different ways. So I think that's kind of the heart of the issue, and it's very loud, that community in the West, on Twitter and different Bitcoin kind of talk platforms. But I don't think it's a real divide. I think it's more just kind of sniping back and forth.
Yeah. So are any of the funds or the capital or the builders excited about the meta protocols, or are they more excited about potential layer 1 innovations? Like, how are they looking at the future of builders from Bitcoin?
Oh yeah. So we spun up UTXO Management's venture fund last year, and we talked to a lot of kind of the institutional, now VC funds back then, about what was exciting about Bitcoin moving forward. And the reception that we got back then was sort of muted. People were waiting to see what was happening. And just in the last 3 months, that's completely reversed. We're kind of in a phase now of really the entire crypto complex moving to Bitcoin, starting with the developers and projects that are wanting to kind of access the liquidity and security of Bitcoin. And along with that interest, these kind of institutional funds follow. And so we're seeing some of these big funds make their first investments recently, and I think that just picks up steam from here. This cycle is all about Bitcoin and assets on Bitcoin. When you look at kind of the assets on Ethereum, similar market cap to the market cap of Ethereum, and we think we'll get to that point for Bitcoin this cycle. So these different token standards are bringing about different opportunities for that, and I think we have a number of kind of moves to make in terms of assets on Bitcoin gaining value.
Thanks. I agree. Like I am definitely seeing a lot more top-tier U.S. funds on the cap table of some of the newest projects launching, right? Whether it's Botanics, I think it's a layer 2. I think it's Arch. I've seen it. I think, Stacks is, I actually want to come back to talk about Stacks because you are, for the longest time, the only project building on Bitcoin. And you were able to bring a lot of institutional investors into supporting Stacks ecosystem, including, I don't know if people here know the Harvard Endowment, right? They were the first one that, the first token that they bought. It's other than Ethereum and Bitcoin, it's probably Stacks. So tell us about, like, as a builder in the US and being the only one building for a long time, like, what are you seeing here in Asia? Like, how do you guys collaborate and work with builders from this part of the world? Like, what kind of use cases you think will be interesting to build on Stacks and integrating with, or maybe taking advantage of the latest token standards?
Yeah, so maybe I'll give a split view, but I also want to kind of reset the stage from my viewpoint that a lot of what we're talking about, we say standards here on stage, but they are very much experiments. A lot of the tokens that we're going to be talking about, or the token types, pardon me, are very new in this ecosystem. So they're very experimental, not yet full standards as well. So just, I'm going to reset that stage for myself here. Very exciting what they're all doing, but again, they're very experimental and new. As John said, the tone has shifted in the last 3 months. A lot of these tokens have come out in the last 3 months and have evolved from there. But from the Stack side as a builder, to your point, we were one of the only. There were 4 core networks at the time. There was Stacks, Lightning, Rootstock, and Liquid, who were all trying to do something different to bring programmability or to bring access to the Bitcoin ecosystem. Fast forward, we're now seeing 80 plus and more, I'm sure, different networks and protocols and early ecosystems trying to do that as well. And so from a Stacks perspective, we have gone through a lot of learnings over the last 3 years since our mainnet launch in 2021 of what it takes to build a network, what it takes to build an ecosystem, what it takes to build technology and infrastructure to support what we think we want for the Bitcoin ecosystem and its technical stack, which I'll say on the other side is something we're all still learning. There's $1.5 trillion of capital that is going to be unlocked of Bitcoin liquidity. That is a technical stack that none of us yet know what is required to have to use at scale and to do all the cool things that we're going to talk about today. So from a developer standpoint, yes, we've been educating investors. We are fortunate to have some endowments and big institutions support us early that now have continued to support the rest of the ecosystem. But from a builder's perspective, we're learning just as everybody else is. We're also learning how we need to improve things, how we need to be faster, how to separate things from the main chain to an actual settlement layer with an L2 and not just using the base chain as a one-to-one pair or seeing transactions in that way. But again, also what else could be there, whether it be oracles, DLCs, it could be subnets. There's so much more that needs to be unlocked. But in terms of unlock, the biggest thing I think we've learned on the developer side is people want to do something with their Bitcoin at the end of the day. They want to be able to borrow, lend, yield, move. And so one of the big things that's happened in the Stacks ecosystem, and a few others are working on this too, is to be able to bring your Bitcoin from the L1 into the L2 and then into the application layer as well. On the investment side, I think one of the biggest issues we're seeing between the East and the West is both don't know what each other are doing. And there's a big disconnect, unfortunately, just not communicating and supporting each other fully yet. The 4 of us up here, because I've been fortunate enough to know all these individuals, yourself included, so the 5 of us, we've co-invested. We're trying to bridge that gap. And I would encourage any developers that are sitting in this room to look to both sides. Look globally and how you can build your ecosystem globally. You can work with developers, you can work with your teams on a global scale and help to decrease that gap that sits there right now.
I would like to add on top of this, right? So Kyle mentioned a very good point, like to understand the other side. And as everyone's aware, like SNZ is always say, like connect to empower. So it's very important to bridge all the gaps. I think it's not only like the West and the East, and also bridge like different ecosystem, right? BTC with ETH with the other like multi-chain ecosystem. Even within the BTC, like all the BTC layer 2, they might not be only competitive, they could be very collaborative, right? So, and also from the other perspective, it's like, it's very important to bridge the traditional like Web2 guys into Web3. It's like on one hand, people may think, oh, why stacks like surge so much? But people, I think 90% of person in the room didn't understand like Stack did the STO back to 2018. What does STO means, right? What does that means that you can get to additional accessibility to a traditional mining pool, right? So it's not only that they can be listed on Coinbase. Technically speaking, it can be bought like through ATS in the States anywhere, right? So that's very important, because if we are really looking at the mass adoption for Bitcoin community, you really need to understand what the Web2 what they think, right? So like 1 month ago, I spent 1 month in States for this time of traveling, and I spent tons of time in Wall Street. It's like after the January the 10th, when the like a BTC ETF got approved, the investor in the second market has already changed, right? So you need to really understand what they care, and then it will largely affect how this crypto ecosystem could be shaped in the future. On the other hand, when we are talking about like a different, I totally agree with Kyle. It's not like standard yet. It's like a new like an initiative, experiments, whatever that you name it. But like so far, it's not. You cannot call standard yet. And when it becomes to a standard, it should be widely accepted by mass market, right? So for now, to be honest, it's still a very niche market. Then when we see or evaluate for all the assets, by the end of the day, you need to kind of evaluate on the supply and demand. So on supply side, I think we have already got a lot. I think the key thing is what is the differentiation, right? What could be sustainable? So that's something I think every layer 2 or whatever like ecosystem builders should think about. And for demand side, we really need to understand what the user needs, instead of like, oh, we just print whatever, then just dump to them, distribute to them. Then those kind of things I have seen, yeah.
So I want to add one thing, because I've talked to all of you independently, and we talked a little bit about this before the panel, and I've seen a lot of this week being here in Hong Kong is, again, that technical stack for Bitcoin, we're still figuring out all the pieces of it, but I think we can all agree that, and since Melody, you originally asked me about the building side, one of the things that we've learned in Stacks, and again, I'm seeing here and talking, and we might all hopefully agree on this, is that with the industry of Web3, we expect everything yesterday. We expect new features, we expect launches, we expect applications yesterday. And we get very frustrated when they aren't already here. But what we're all learning as developers, and again, what I'm hearing from builders here is we need to take our time and make sure that this technology, the infrastructure, the meta protocols, the application layer, the middleware, everything in between is stable, is secure, is tested, secure, because if we really open up $1 trillion of capital, we have one shot. We open up $1 billion of that Bitcoin capital, we have one shot. The moment we have major leaks, the moment we have major infrastructure breaks, the moment that we have big issues. The Bitcoin ETFs, both in the US, here in Hong Kong, and globally, are showing that the institutional demand is there for all sides of this ecosystem. But from the builder side, we have to be slow. We have to take our time building this stuff, go fast in building the ecosystems, but we gotta be slow in building this development to make sure it is hardened and secure for not just $1 billion, but $1 trillion of capital.
Yeah, I think you touched upon something I found is quite unique with the psychology of Bitcoin holders and the Bitcoin users. They come from very different places than the ETH holders with the Ethereum contributors or the Solana holders and the Solana community. The Bitcoin community are much more grassroots, right? They are a lot more risk averse with their assets than some of the other ecosystems. So how you build for Bitcoin as an asset and for Bitcoin holder will have a different mentality. right,
So-
than when you build products for Solana holders, right?
So I want to give something real quick. Sorry to interrupt the question, but I want to give something real quick that an investor said to me today that I hadn't thought of in that point, is that every builder in this ecosystem, and this is going to be a heavy weight to put on your shoulders, but every builder in this ecosystem, no matter where you are in this stack, should be thinking about the responsibility of that $1 trillion. That when you build any piece of this technology or application, you should be thinking, can this, and is it secure enough to handle that $1 trillion? Because if you're not thinking about that $1 trillion, the users are there. We all know people hold Bitcoin, the users are there. But are you ready? Is your technology ready to take on the weight and securely use or move that $1 trillion? And I think that's a big mentality switch that we're going to find out very quickly. So sorry to interrupt.
No, yeah, no worries. I think what we're talking about by far has been about the assets. I actually am very curious because you have looked at a lot of interesting innovations, not necessarily to serve Bitcoin as assets, but also using Bitcoin as a blockchain. So what I want to hear is some of the really interesting directions, ideas, technical challenges, but you think are really important to tackle, right? To inspire some of the builders here, fellow investors. Where should they look? What should they focus on? You know, which even technical solutions you think are interesting? Maybe you can just share some of the thoughts that you have, right? And maybe we can start with John.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, so much happening right now. In terms of kind of the use cases that we're excited about right now, like I said earlier, we're in this process of kind of the rest of the crypto complex moving to Bitcoin. So the things that most people are building are focused on like the DeFi applications, things that are already existing, and plugging Bitcoin into that. But where we're excited about the future is the things where things weren't possible before before Bitcoin was in the picture. So I totally agree that kind of the mindset aspect needs to be this needs to be secure for $1 trillion. To your point, the Bitcoin community views this as, a lot of people only hold Bitcoin. It's like their entire net worth. It's their property. It's their nest egg. It's the thing they don't want screwed up. And so I agree that needs to be the focus here.
So very much on security. Security to when you bring Bitcoin, programmability of Bitcoin, you think the most important thing is really to focus on security.
Longer term.
How about BMAN?
Yeah, the most important challenge I think we are facing today is to, how we can build native Bitcoin layer 2s. And right now, to be honest, all the Bitcoin layer 2s out there are sidechains. So we are at a Polygon moment. For example, in 2017, Polygon came out. Actually, it was a sidechain, and it got bigger and bigger and built a big ecosystem, and it has the capital to acquire like Polygon zkEVM and the Polygon Zero team, so that they can upgrade from a sidechain into a native Ethereum layer 2. So right now we are at that moment. So we need to have some technology like OPCAT and BitVM to enable us to do verification on Bitcoin layer 1. So we are doing it with Starkware. Actually, I hosted Bitcoin Day last month in Hong Kong. I invited the co-founder of Starkware, Ali, to our event, and he introduced us with BTC Cairo, and actually there was a small team in Starkware promoting and building OPCAT and the BVM, and we are also the contributor to OPCAT. And now OPCAT is on testnet. Hopefully we will have OPCAT live on next year, so that we have a chance to do the native verification of Bitcoin layer 1. And at that time, we can have the OP moment, arbitrum moment, startnet moment for Bitcoin. And we will witness the true native Bitcoin layer 2s by then. So that will be really exciting, so that we can have a more secure and more native solution for Bitcoin layer 2s.
So these innovations are being led by some of the original Ethereum ZK researchers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually a good time to really connecting the two communities, bring the best of what's being built or what has built on Ethereum, see how we can try to take advantage of the technology and serve Bitcoin.
Yeah, the beauty of Bitcoin ecosystem right now is that the most important builders here are actually from the other ecosystem. So that is, really interesting.
How did they make the move? Why would they move
Actually,
from...
Novos is,
Yeah, true, yes.
formerly, building Ethereum, but right now they are the most important builder in Bitcoin too. Right.
Welcome. We thank you for your contribution.
I would say I still think like when we talk about like infra, like all the infra builders need to think ahead, like what the infra is built for, right? What's the key differentiation from the other solutions? That will be very important. It's not like, okay, I just build something, it might not, no one use it, but like I can raise money, I can, like a pump token and just kind of do copycat. Like, so, from my perspective, that might not be that helpful for the development for the entire ecosystem, right? So BMAN mentioned like a Jen's like movement from like to devote more to Bitcoin. But personally, I think the idea has always been very consistent. It's always like UTXO plus POW. It's like so that's a key kind of fundamental for CKB, and also CKB has lots of very good like differentiation. For example, they have they support much more encryption algorithm to do signature, right, compared to Ethereum, right? So those kind of some key features might not be very kind of close to like normal people. They might not understand, but like this lay down the foundation for the potential upside for the infra. However, like we still need to have an application or a middleware to leverage and to utilize all those kind of special functions and put into in a very practical ways, right? Otherwise, for example, right, if you we are using lots of app like DD, Uber, etc., but no one really cares like whether which like AWS is AWS, GCP, or like is Ali Cloud there, or which like tech stack they're using for those, right? So I think it's very important for even for infra players to understand why their technology is very special. What could be the scenario for them to be different? That's very important. And this goes to the other thing. If we are only targeting convert like a crypto Bitcoin holder to do more things on Bitcoin, or we are really targeting the mass like 6 billion or whatever people in like 5-10 years, they can get into the Bitcoin ecosystem. I think those are two different groups of people, and we may need to have different approaches to onboard them. Yeah.
And I agree across the table. I mean, all four of you as investors, myself as a fifth, we've invested across the stack. I mean, UTXO, ABCDE, SNZ, Spartan, myself included, we are investing at all levels because all levels need to be supported. One thing I think we want to see more of, I want to see more of, is experimentation. Again, want to see new ideas, new concepts, new consensus mechanisms, new ideas of thinking of how this could all work out, because again, we don't know what that technical stack will finally look like as that liquidity gets open. And also to Gavin's point, when we think about not just BTC holders today, but the greater world as well, everybody having access to that. But also for me, I'm looking for that middleware. Gavin mentioned this further, is we've got infrastructure, we've got applications. I want to see the connection. How do we connect the infrastructure to the application? In the past, we had that called APIs. I'm looking for that API layer. That's what I'm excited to see. And we've got six great investors, 7 actually up here now, that are all looking at those types of opportunities.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Fashionably late. But you're like Bitcoin, right? You're Bitcoin builders. You're late, but You're last. So would love to have Dan introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I was a little bit late here, but yeah, like you said, Bitcoin DeFi feels late, but actually certain elements of Bitcoin DeFi was early. People forget that NFTs actually started on Bitcoin with Counterparty. Ethereum popularized them, and now they're coming back to Bitcoin. So yeah, Bitcoin does feel like it's a late mover, but I think it can learn a lot from Ethereum and other DeFi platforms, where, for example, we can look at the failures and the mistakes that were made there and not bring that back to Bitcoin. So a little bit about me, GP at Asymmetric. Asymmetric is a Bitcoin DeFi venture fund, so we invest in Bitcoin DeFi projects. I've been in the space 12 years. I used to lead marketing at Kraken, and I've done a lot of things over the years.
Yeah, Dan is definitely another big OG influencer in the Bitcoin space. So we have covered quite a lot of topics. So since you just arrived, maybe you can give us a more fresh perspective. We talked a lot about what are the applications, what the technologies that we're very excited about now and also very challenging. So because we are, as investors, need to think ahead of time. We can't just invest in whatever works now, which we do, but what are some of the investments or ideas or things that you've seen, you feel like, oh wow, that's might not work now, but the technology is so interesting and unlock interesting applications. I'm investing now, but it might happen in the next 3 years.
Yeah, so I think that Bitcoin's DeFi summer, this summer it's not going to happen. It's a little too soon. There's a lot more infrastructure that has to be built. We've seen some early glimmers of DeFi and Bitcoin occurring, especially on the ordinals front. There's more trading volume in Bitcoin NFTs than on Ethereum NFTs. Bitcoin NFTs are bigger than Ethereum, and it's only been around for a year. So we've seen some glimmers of DeFi happening on Bitcoin, but we are a little ways away, I think, probably a year out until we see that fully developed and mature. I've been into Bitcoin DeFi for over 3 to 4 years now. Started to write about it in the Held Report, my newsletter, and on Twitter. If you read my TechCrunch article that covers me leaving Kraken, I lay out my Bitcoin DeFi investment thesis 2 years ago. So I've been looking at this sector a long time, and that's where if we look at the early inklings of L2s on top of Ethereum, you had Polygon, which was a glorified multi-sig. L2s on top of Bitcoin are going to resemble that kind of move fast and break things culture of like going and building what are basically just multi-sigs, and then later on with Opcat or another op code, what we can do is make trustless bridging occur, if this gets implemented into Bitcoin. So, what do we look at in the future? I think we're going to see a soft fork proposal on Bitcoin, probably Opcat. If that gets implemented, really exciting things can happen on Bitcoin that we weren't capable of doing before. And I think people aren't ready outside of the Bitcoin ecosystem. Most people haven't thought about the implications of that. I think it's very probable that Opcat gets implemented. So that if I were to pick one thing, that's probably what a lot of people aren't looking at yet. Or if they've thought like, oh, soft fork proposals don't happen on Bitcoin that often, that's probably going to happen really far away from now. I think it's a year or two away.
Thank you. That's very insightful. Yeah, we would, if we can see the soft fork happen, it sounds like a lot of the technical challenges can maybe be solved, and we can have Bitcoin DeFi sooner. That'll be very exciting. We also talked about, because we have 3 of us from China, right, Asia. Now we have equal weight from the West. What are you seeing that the builders in the West are building? And I'm sure you've probably met people here, the builders in Asia. What are the key differences in approach, and what kind of mindset they have are different, especially for when it comes to build on Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we at Asymmetric invest in both Western startups and Asian startups. For example, we are investors in Fractal, which is a company created by Unisat, which is a Bitcoin meta protocol, and BitLayer. So we primarily focus on Western startups, but we do look in Asia. That's also why I'm out here, is to get a little bit more boots on the ground, kind of develop a little bit more local knowledge. The difference, I would say, is that the hustle mentality of Asia is pretty intense. There's a lot of overpromising, I think is one way to put it, where things are, I would say, there's a lot of good execution, but I'd say expectations are set pretty high, and there's a little bit more of a short-term mindset, whereas builders in the West, I think they're here for the long haul. For example, like in Asia, VCs change their name. Or they'll cherry pick the logos that they put on their website, where those logos are only of the companies that did well.
These are called upgrades.
Yeah, in America we don't do that. You put your losses and your wins together, and you don't change your VC firm name. And I've heard people also change their names here too. We don't do that in America. Reputation is a very, very long developed thing that we do pride ourselves on. So it's a different cultural element that I'm getting used to when it comes to things like that. I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just different ways that we operate. So yeah, there's quite a bit of differences. I'd say the short-term mindset is one that Westerners are a little bit afraid of is this startup founder going to work on this for the next 10 years? In America, that's what we think of when we invest in startup founders. Will they continue to pound their heads against a wall and break through walls to make this startup happen over a decade? So I'd say like it's short-term mindset versus long-term mindset is the biggest one I see. But I would say like everyone in Asia, like they've got that hustle, they've got that intensity. It's just will they apply that over 10 years, or are they just going to work on this for a couple of years? And so that's I would say the biggest differences that we see.
Do you guys want to refute that? Especially Asia-based investors.
I was about to refute it because the U.S. having made
we need
investments
to
here as
fight
well.
this. This is not fair.
No, so I don't want to jump in front of BMAN. I'll just say short and sweet. I mean, I've made investments globally, including here as well. And I think part of what Dan is mentioning, yes, it's true on maybe in terms of some mindsets. But to be honest, I would take a different side and say here in Asia, they are builders that I have met are challenging the norm.
Yeah,
And
all the
they're-
exchanges.
they're-
Who runs the
Well,
all
yeah.
the miners?
That's a different part of that story, different part of the story. But the point is that builders are challenging the norm. The reason we have a lot of these challenges in the technical stack of Bitcoin is because founders here throughout all of Asia have introduced a lot of these concepts, new technologies, new experiments, new consensus mechanisms, because they don't care. They are trying to build and bring stuff to the technical stack that we haven't heard before. Whereas
We're trying to use it.
they're trying to use it, whereas in some cases in the US and Europe and other places, it's a little bit more of a different mindset of we need to be very process-based. We need to not break things. We need to not challenge. We need to do a lot of the same old traditional things. And so we haven't seen as much innovation in the last few years as much in the US, if we want to separate the two, as opposed to what we've seen in the last year and a half here in Asia. So I'll support both sides on that one. Go for it, B-Man.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't agree that the builders in the East are short term. Actually, I am really long term. I have been in crypto for 12 years, and when we like building on Bitcoins, a lot of builders in the West doesn't exist yet. So we have been building really long term. So for example, CKB, they have been building in UTXO and RGB for about like 6 years. So that is really long term players. And I think there are many long term players out there in the East. But the difference is that I think the builders in the East are more practical and they are more like community driven because there are a lot of populations here. And we can, advocate large numbers of community to support our projects and builders. But what we need in the East is that to introduce more technical and, the long-term innovation in the tech side from the West. For example, as I said, we are collaborating with Starkware to promote BPM and the OPCAT, and that is, that is what we need from the West because there are a lot of, hardcore researchers and PhDs in the West, and that's why we are also investing in the Western projects. Like we invested in the seed round of Botanics and Arch and Coin and Lorenzo, and we are also investing in Babylon. And they're actually like a globalized team, combining the technology in the West and also have a large number of community in the East. So I think as an investor, I want to be the bridge between the East and the West to combine the power together to move Bitcoin innovation forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for sharing. I really, I can't agree with more. I think there are so much to contribute from each side of the world, and Bitcoin is really the perfect place where we meet and we build for a global community, right? When the world is not in a good place right now, the best thing we can do is come together and build for this incredible technology, incredible assets that I've created, for something we leave over, we leave for our children, our next generation of human beings. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for sharing. You're here and you're early. Everybody is early, and we will see something really exciting in the next 12 months. I'm sure we'll make some leaps of innovation. Hopefully to meet you guys here again next year. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.